know if amazing is the right word, but you had an experience happen in the last few weeks, and I want you to talk about it because it's mind blowing to me. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, it's life changing for me.
It's
the most monumental thing that's ever happened to me in my life. And for those of you that follow me on Facebook, you know a little bit about it. I've talked a little bit about what's happened to my family, and we had a massive emergency take place with my father, and he had a heart attack. But before I get involved with that, the Bass Open was actually full.
Right.
For the first time in 10 years, I couldn't enter. The Bass Open. So
you were supposed to be there. You had to plan to be there.
I had my calendar blocked out to be at this tournament.
Yep.
And I called to register, and they said, "Hey, man, we're maxed out." So I'm frustrated as could be.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to qualify for the Classic.
Yeah, it's James River. It's a tidal river.
It's the way I like to all that stuff. So I'm altering my plan, but the positive was that I was going to be home on the 4th of July weekend.
Yeah, you had planned on leaving on Friday.
On that Friday,
4th of July, landing on a Saturday.
That's right.
Yeah,
and so I didn't leave. I got to spend the day with my family, and which was a bonus. So I'm there, and we're in the backyard, and my father swimming with my son. I'm cooking burgers. We've got a few mom. Shelly's mom's there. A couple of Shelly's close friends are there, and my son, he's about to turn 6 in a couple weeks. He looks up at me, and he says to me, he calls my dad Jaji. That's Polish for grandfather. That's what he calls me. He says, "Jaji's not coming up." And I look up, and my dad's underwater, and it really didn't strike me as awkward because Dad's a swimmer.
Yeah,
he's always underwater, traveling across the pool, and I didn't really think much of it. But I looked.
Yeah. So you turn around, and your first thought was, he's
just swimming.
Yeah.
No big deal. And I looked, and he wasn't coming up. I took 2 steps towards the pool, and he wasn't moving a muscle. Now I'm striding, and he's still not moving. I'm in a full sprint, and I just lost control of what I was doing. I just jumped into the pool in full dress, and I jumped in, and I grabbed a hold of my dad, who still wasn't moving. And I couldn't believe it. It's surreal. It's like this is something you see in the movies,
Yeah.
Could this really be happening? And as I grabbed him, he was dead weight. And he's a 200-pound man. He's dead weight.
No move. You didn't feel no movement.
I grabbed him under his arms, and I pulled his head up above the water. And it was the most eerie, shocking thing I've ever seen. His eyes were rolled, like when his head went back, his eyes rolled, and they were glazed over and fuzzy, and his mouth was open, and it was pure silence.
Oh.
No air, no breathing, no like you might think you might hear, like pain, just nothing.
Quiet,
nothing. So, it's just pure quiet. So I grab up Dad, and I pick him up the wrong way. I try to cradle him, and he's a big man, and I got to get him out of the pool, and Shelly comes over, my wife Shelly comes over, and she helps me get my dad up onto the concrete on top of my pool, and we get him up out of the water, and there he is. There's nothing. There's no breathing. There's no pulse. There's no nothing. And now I'm trained in CPR.
Because your guide business.
Yeah. To be a Coast Guard captain, to guide, you have to have your CPR certification, first aid and stuff. And in this crisis, I promise you, I did not know how to start. I couldn't remember. And
because you're you got a million things going through your mind.
You're like,
so
do I need to do
CPR?
Well, how do you first decide to do CPR? You try to remember. Do you feel for a pulse? Do you feel for breath? What's the first step? And but when I grabbed my dad, this was we had an amazing emergency response team on site that day in my family and friends, because when I grabbed my dad up and got him out of the water, I knew immediately there was a problem, and I hollered, "Dial 911."
Somebody got right on the phone and dialed it.
Before those numbers were out of my mouth, that number was being dialed.
So it was being dialed before your dad was even out of the pool.
Before he was out of the pool.
Wow.
Right. So So they're dialing 911, which is kind of funny because it was Shelly's friend Jamie and Diane, and Jamie doesn't come over our house that much. She doesn't know our address, so she dialed the number, and then she had to hand it to Diane to give her the address because in order to get the emergency people there. And anyway, so they did a masterful job of moving so quick, and so anyway, I get them up, and I just start into CPR what I could remember. Right, I start 2 breaths, and then I start compressions, and I can't even remember which order. I just started doing it.
Yeah.
Then the girls, again, I mean, all these things were so masterful, but they put that phone that was on 911 on speaker and laid it right down in front of me.
Yeah.
I got a 911 operator.
Yeah.
And I said, I said CPR instructions now, and. Kind of getting emotional remembering this because they told me, and as soon as they told me what to do, I remembered everything,
Right. You just needed that verbal clue.
Right. So I'm giving my dad chest compressions. I mean, you just can't imagine.
Yeah.
Mouth to mouth chest compressions, and as I'm compressing, it's causing his body, the blood to go through his body.
Mm-hmm.
And he's starting to do these breaths that aren't natural breaths. They're like induced breaths that you're causing by doing the CPR.
Right.
So what you're doing is working. But
you're breathing for him.
I remember saying, he's breathing, and the operator was, right there. No, that's a normal, you got to keep going.
Yep.
And, I remember doing the chest compression. I remember feeling the ribs popping.
Ooh.
Now, I remember that from my training that you're supposed to feel that. It sounds kind of like knuckles cracking. And if you're pushing hard enough, you should be hearing that.
Wow.
And I remember that. So I was confident that I was doing it right. And then one of the most amazing thing, I think I went through two rounds of CPR, maybe 3 at best. And this was just amazing. The paramedics pulled me off of my dad. They were there that fast.
Wow. So you're talking, 5 minutes?
I can't imagine it was 5 minutes. It had to be less than 5 minutes. And I don't know how long it would take to do those 2 rounds, but they were there so fast. And thank you so much to the Mount Laurel emergency EMTs, the response team, the fire department, the police.
Yeah.
They were all there. They were all there on 4th of July.
Wow.
Right? This was a holiday weekend where I'm sure they may have had, been with their families when they got the call.
Yeah. It's amazing. Isn't that amazing? And we always say a thank you to those guys at every show. That's amazing. And here it is. It's crazy.
I can't thank those guys enough.
So they took over. So they relieved you.
They relieved me, and then they the guys that showed up, and I might have to collect myself once more as we get through this, but guys that showed up were crack staff, man. It was like, man, I don't know what kind of experience these guys had, whether it was actually wartime military experience or just years and years out there in the field saving lives.
They were dialed.
They knew exactly what to do. They attacked. They attacked it.
Right.
Now, here's, so I'm there, people are, and my whole family now is doing their job. Like Shelly's mom, she's watching Jake, as is Jamie, and they're trying to protect Jake from, overexposure to this situation, especially, because it could turn bad.
Yeah.
This might not have a good ending.
Right.
So, they're working with Jake, and everybody's got a job, and the emergency staff. It seemed like there was 25 emergency personnel in my backyard.
Wow.
And they start working on my dad, and they're doing the chest compressions. Now they got a breather. They got 2 or 3 people doing CPR at the same time, and I'm talking to my dad.
Yeah.
I'm talking to him. I'm letting him. I'm cheering him on. Like, come on, Pop.
Yeah.
Come on, just come out of this. And they kept going. They hit him with the defibrillators, and I'm like, yes. No pulse, right? So you're you're hoping so much for something and nothing. And they get after him again, and they go for a period of time, and then they clear. And I remember the paramedic, he screamed at me because they're about to shock my dad, and I got my dad's foot because it's the only piece of him I could hold, and I'm letting him know that I'm there, and they're about to send all this electricity through his body. So this credit to this guy, he told me to go F myself and get the F off of him, and at a moment like that, that's exactly what you need. You need somebody in charge. You need somebody that's not taking, he telling you exactly what to do, when to do it. There's no debate.
They don't want another person to work on.
You're trying to save a life here. And there's no minute to discuss, right? So get the hell out of the area, So, but I got off of them, and of course I was off of them, but they shocked him again, and I'm like, oh, it's just flat. Nothing. So then it's starting to get really, really tight in my backyard. The hustle and bustle of people coming, talking, and going is now silent. Right. All these veteran medical staff are now, it's been too long. They've seen this kind of thing before. It's been 10 minutes. Right. So it's starting. That's a long time. It's starting to get real quiet, and then 10 minutes turn to 11 minutes, turn to 12 minutes, and you're like, God. And I'm the only one talking, and I'm talking to my dad. And they strap on his back a board, and then they have this compression device that goes around the front of him. It looks like a big giant piston sort of thing. And they strap that on him, and it was electric, and it starts going. And I mean, they're boom, boom, boom. It's doing chest compressions faster and stronger than any person could do them. Ah, gotcha. And they're hitting them with this, and then they take that off, and they put the defibrillator, the shock on there again, and boom, they get a pulse. Wow. Time was still. It seemed like an hour and a half. Wow. And as they got a pulse, they get him on the gurney, and they ship him off to the ambulance, and I jump into the ambulance with him, and Dad's now, I couldn't believe it. He's giving him trouble, which I was happy to see, right? He's in the back of the ambulance, and he's twisting and turning on the guy. I can see his feet kicking, and they're having to hold him down and talk to him and explain, that, we're going to take care of you. And he doesn't know what's happening to him. He's disoriented a little bit. He's way disoriented. He's partially conscious, all this business. But I'm just happy. And I don't know what the outcome is, because 15 minutes was a long time. Yeah. And, but we get back to the emergency room. And again, thanks to the Marlton Hospital emergency staff. Amazing team there. Amazing team that, boy, they've got a lot to be proud of, and all these people that worked with Dad and us. But the doctor comes out, the emergency room doctor comes out to me, and he goes, he's congratulating me and my family on getting that CPR started, and that's the reason why Dad still got a chance. And that's all I'm happy. I'm happy right now. We got a chance. I don't know what's going to happen, but Dad's, at least we're in the fight still. And as he's telling me all this stuff, what happens? Beep, flatlines again. Oh my God! Right in the emergency room, and I'm like. So my emotions, I am at max emotional extremes the entire step of the way from the beginning to the end of this thing. And it's been 30 minutes now or so. And now I get hit with this blow, and I'm looking, but I can't help. And they sling the curtain. I see the girl jump up on a stool, and she starts ramming the chest compressions. And they're working on Dad again, and they close the curtain. This time, in a short time, they come back out, and they get him stabilized. I guess so. They quickly got it back. Much quicker, they got it back this time. And we got through all that stuff, and I'm at the hospital. later on, that night, just not knowing what's going to take place with Dad or how bad it really was, and I just couldn't believe what was happening, because it's what seemed like just a matter of hours. I was talking to my dad.
Yeah.
I was talking to him.
Yeah.
And I held him in my hands. There was no life. There was no heartbeat, and for all that time, he was down. But here I am now, like he's back. And we've got you hear these, live like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you just see that, every day's free. Every day is free. And every moment that I had, like, I didn't know if Dad was going to recover.
Right.
Like this was happening. Like I'm having a conversation with him. I don't know if it's my last words.
Yeah.
I'm going to be sharing with this person.
Yeah.
And so, they were such a precious time for me to be there. And my mom and I, we were with Dad for 24 hours straight through this process, and and here's the situation, and it's a miracle. It's literally a miracle, and the Dad is expected. He's home now. He's home. This happened on July 4th. Today, he was out with his physical therapist walking down our street, the street where I grew up.
Right on, man.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's just it's crazy. It's a full recovery is expected, and he, we don't know. He's got a lot. He's weak.
Yeah. Well, he went through a lot.
Well, we kicked his ass with the CPR.
Yeah.
We kicked him. We hurt him pretty hard. And CPR is, anybody that's ever been through it will tell you that it's one of the most difficult things to overcome, because sometimes it's broken ribs.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a lot of physical pain, bruising, and all kinds of things. And but he's recovered from that. He's walking, and mentally, here's another thing. There's often damage that occurs when your brain is starved from oxygen.
That was a long time.
For too long.
Yeah.
And there's a couple things that they say that were helpful, like my swimming pool, which I cuss all the time because my neighbor's trees shade it from the afternoon sun, so it's always too cold. And because my pool was cold when Dad was in the water, it maybe lessened the demand for oxygen.
Yeah. Slowed everything down.
Slowed down just a bit. And then because my son Jake, the best first responder in the history of the world, I love you, Jake. You are the man. He called me.
Yeah.
He could have ignored it, could have thought it was normal maybe.
Right.
He could have played, turned and done something else. He's 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he saw something unusual and acted on it.
Yeah.
And
it's amazing.
I'm so proud of you, buddy.
Wow.
But
That's amazing.
that had to happen. The pool, the CPR, all that stuff, keeping that blood flow going, is allowed Dad's brain to not sustain any injury, other than usual, because he couldn't remember anything before this.
Right.
but he's going to be back to normal, and it's like every single thing that had to happen for my dad to survive this happened.
Yeah.
And it happened in the order it needed to.
Yeah.